Hello. I want to talk about this new A24 film, Opus. And if I'm good at video editing, I'll put the poster right there. And if I'm not, I won't. So I wanted to talk about this movie because, this is the latest film from A24, who's a very trendy film distributor these days. And I fucking love A24. You know, like if I'm an A24 fanboy, like I'm fucking fine with that, because I mean I think that they create some of the most creative and engaging and entertaining and unique movies that are out there right now. So if they stop doing that, I'll stop being a huge fan and wanting to see everything they do. But they're not showing any signs of slowing down. Um, that this new movie of theirs, Opus, is getting kind of a more mixed reception, and I find that interesting. Um, and I want to start by saying that there's no right or wrong about art. I'm not saying my opinion is any more right than the majority of reviewers who dislike this movie, and even with cinema scores, it's been really divisive with audiences too. And I find that interesting, but I'm not saying anybody's wrong. It's not possible to be wrong or right about art. It's just how it affects you. You know, but when I see a film that I feel like is getting this more mixed reception or is being maligned that I really enjoyed, I want to put the good word out there for it because I think what everybody should do, is go to a movie themselves and make up their own mind rather than looking at critic scores and just being like, it's not for me. So so I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying this is the opinion people should believe. I'm just presenting a counterpoint to the reviews you'll find online, which will be predominantly negative. I mean, not hugely so. It's like 40 something percent positive on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's not like totally unanimous that this movie sucks. It's more of a split. But regardless, I mean, I just wanted to say, that I really enjoyed this movie, and I thought it was incredibly entertaining. The schmutz, I got some schmutz. Forget it. Yeah, I thought it was an incredibly entertaining movie. I mean, you got fucking John Malkovich in these like crazy costumes, singing pop songs written by The Dream and Nile Rodgers, and like dancing around all like gyrating and thrusting and stuff. And it's fucking hilarious. I'm really impressed that that Malkovich, at this stage in his career, when he's so acclaimed, he's been doing this for so long. The fact that he would make himself look like this much of a moron for this movie, I think is really admirable. I think a lot of people in his position would not be willing to look this ridiculous for our entertainment. And this movie, so it's basically about these two journalists who get invited to this pop star's special compound to to cover the release event for his new album. It's like the first album he's made in decades, and this is like a very beloved pop star played by John Malkovich, who I mean, it's basically an analog for Prince. At least I think so, because like Prince, this is like a pop artist who people have elevated to this level of like genius, like unimpeachable genius. And like Prince, he lives in a weird special compound with, like, tons of people who are there all the time helping him out, doing things for him. Um, like Prince, everyone is under constant surveillance when they're there. Um, I mean, if you've seen Kevin Smith's Prince story, you'll know that every room in Paisley Park was wired for sound, and that was so that Prince could record in any room, but it also meant that everything was being recorded, just all the time, or could at least be surveilled. Um, and like Prince, he has like museums to himself in this compound and stuff. And like Prince, he's famous for wearing tons of elaborate costumes and traveling with them and doing constant costume changes and stuff. It's Prince. And that was my first kind of mental leap I had to make with this movie, because it's just like John Malkovich is great being a creepy cult guy. He's like built to do that. But like John Malkovich being Prince, it like took me a second. It was just I couldn't picture it. Like I would hear the songs and I couldn't imagine that voice coming out of his mouth. But when you see him in action, it's absurd and ridiculous and hilarious, but not necessarily more so than any other pop star, doing these choreographed moves and stuff, and with these larger than life personas. I mean, it is kind of an inherently absurd thing. I mean, I love Prince's music, and part of the reason I love it is that inherent absurdity. He was a ridiculous, very bizarre person in a lot of ways, and I find that really interesting and engaging. So that's what's going on with Malkovich in this movie. He's ridiculous and insane, and that's how pop stars who get to that level really are. I mean, look at Michael Jackson, which is another analog you could very easily draw to this character. Um, and so you have just this incredibly entertaining performance by Malkovich. It's like my favorite thing I've seen him do in years, and just like a really brave performance, no vanity, just throwing himself into it, looking like a total moron. And you have let's see, what's her name? You have Ayo Adibri from The Bear, which is why I can't remember her name, because I've only seen like a couple episodes of The Bear. I should watch it probably someday. But she's great in it. She's our lead, and she's like the only one in this group who's been sent to cover this event. She's like the only one who realizes that something is wrong. Like her boss, who's attending with her and is going to take all the credit for the story. At one, he just he sees all this crazy, horrible shit happening right in front of him, and he just refuses to acknowledge it, to the point where I mean, spoilers, but it doesn't matter that much. I mean, he literally he gets like shot with an arrow through the chest, and like that doesn't even make him want to leave, which I think is really funny. I think that's really good satire, because I think that's true. I think once you reach a certain level of fame, like I feel like, if you went to Paul McCartney's house and you got hit in the face with a cricket ball really hard, you would be like, shit, I just got hit really hard in the face with Paul McCartney's cricket ball. That's pretty cool. I don't think you would be like, well, I'm leaving and I'm never coming back, because it's like, we forgive so much with these celebrities up until the point where we literally can't forgive it anymore, which is when they do something terrible, which is when they commit an actual crime. And I think that's largely what this movie is about too, is that, we have this fascination where when famous people do bad things, we want to know every detail of it, you know. And I think there are two reasons for that. I mean, number one, we've put a lot into, we have feelings for this person. we're passionate about what they do. I mean, like sharing your art with the world is like a very personal thing, and it's easy to feel like personally connected to somebody's art. You know, so you just have to try to you have to look at a situation and be like, well, I've spent so much time loving and obsessing over this art. Can I still love it, or is this person too much of a monster for me to continue to engage with it? So I think that's part of it, is wanting to know how bad they really are. Because in our heads we have certain things we can forgive and certain things we can't. But I think it's also about just curiosity. Just when horrible shit happens, we're interested. We want to know more. I mean, that's also just true crime in general, because most of us don't live in a world where we're psychopaths who murder people or do all this crazy horrible stuff to people, and so getting a window into that world and that mindset, and I think it's partially like too, we like reading about horrible people because it makes us feel better about ourselves to an extent too. That we're like, well, at least I'm not as bad as that guy, you know. So I think that there's all of that in there. There's that, you know, there's that connection between the artist and their audience, which is a very personal and very powerful thing. And there's just our general fascination with horrible people doing horrible things, you know and there is that sense that we don't want to think that we're bad people. So having a comparison point like that, where you can be like, no, that's what a monster actually is, it can be reassuring sometimes. you know so and I've been reading reviews where they're just like, oh, the commentary in the movie is really hollow, it doesn't go anywhere, it has nothing to say. And the movie made me think about all of these things, so it had something to say to me. I can totally understand watching it and just being like, that was pointless and weird for the sake of weird, but that's not the reaction I had to it. I mean, it is inherently like a very, very, very absurd movie, but I think that's necessary because it's about the absurdity of celebrity and about these people who become more than flesh and blood people who we like deify, and who will we're willing to, let them get away with so much until it reaches a point of no return. And even then, when they commit one of those acts, it's just like, okay, we're done with you. We're not done with them, right? Because we want to obsess over every detail. We want to know everything about what they did, so we can make up our own mind. And that means that their crimes, have more longevity, they have more impact because we continue to engage with them as a society, rather than just being like, oh, that person did something bad, let's never talk about them again. It's more like, that person did something bad, let's talk about them fucking constantly, you know? And that just gives what they did more weight, and it creates more publicity for these artists too. It raises general awareness, of these artists, and raises curiosity. So there's all this weird shit about celebrity and how we respond to celebrities, how we think about them, and how we feel, um, that they are essentially like a higher life form, like to just get an opportunity to be around them, to be in the same room as them, is like a privilege, you know. When at the end of the day, there are people who are just, strange and flawed and capable of good things and bad things, just like anybody else. And often, because we raise them to that level, they're capable of acts of extreme darkness like that because they feel invincible, and they feel like people will forgive them, and that they're that they're too big to fail. Essentially, that it's just like I can do whatever I want because people are going to be afraid to speak out against me, and even if they do speak out against me, all of the goodwill that I've established over the years will protect me. And that was true up until a certain point, up until the whole Me Too thing, when that whole established that whole thing kind of crumbled down, fell apart. Where it's just like no, we are going to hold people accountable when they do shitty things, and now that's beginning to fade away again. I feel like people can at this point commit crappy acts, even awful acts, and then within like 6 months or something, they can get back into it like nothing happened, and most people will be you know fine with it. So I just think this movie, I think it is. It does have interesting things to say about celebrity. It does give you a lot to talk about and a lot to think about when you leave. I mean, and it shows everything in this very absurd, heightened way, but to me, that just makes it incredibly entertaining. So, this is a first film by this director. He done like a short film before this. Mark Anthony Green is his name. And I will absolutely be waiting to see what he does next, because I certainly don't think this is a perfect movie, but I think it's one of the most entertaining films I've seen this year. I think he's off to a great start, and I think he is very capable of making a truly great film in the future. Um, like tonight I saw this movie, Black Bag, which is the new Steven Soderbergh movie. And Black Bag was like super competently made and written and acted. It was like a rock solid movie, but it didn't have that personality to it and that energy to it and that creativity that I associate so much with A24, and I think is extremely present in this movie Opus. So, I'll take a movie like this, which is imperfect but feels so unique and so alive, over kind of a safer, more more traditionally solid movie like Black Bag, where it's like there's nothing wrong with it, but they're also not risking very much. This is a movie that risks some stuff. I mean, Malkovich, that he agreed to look this stupid on film, in like his mid 70s or however old he is, after all of the praise and the awards and everybody saying he's like the best actor on the planet, that he would do something this fucking goofy and ridiculous is heartwarming to me. I love it, and I would recommend. Once again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying this is the correct opinion, but I am saying if you look at the reviews and you say, no, it's not very well reviewed, so maybe I'll just skip it. I'm just saying, don't do that, because you can see, there's me, there's people like me, there's 40% of critics who like this movie, at least to some extent. So, all I ask is, that this is, I think, a really original, cool movie, and I would just advise you to go to it and make up your own mind. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, but don't just assume you're not going to like it, because there are a lot of critics who don't like it, because there even if they're not in the majority, there are a lot of people who like it or even love it too. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Rant over.